So today we're going to be talking about level 2. This is sort of an expansion on what we were doing yesterday in level 1. You're going to be working today with distance and midpoint, and we're going to be doing this mostly using a graph. I'm also going to give you a formula for midpoint that you can use whether you have a graph or not. It makes it a little bit more precise. So our goals are to be able to find a midpoint using a graph. We want to be able also to find the distance. Remember, the word distance is also seen sometimes as length, okay? So distance and length mean the same thing. And we want to be able to read a graph accurately. It's kind of important to be able to see where the points are when we're doing this. So we need to do two things here. We need to find the midpoint and the distance for the 2 points shown. So we have 2 points here, and we want to find the midpoint. This is pretty easy to see on the graph. It's very clearly right in the middle. So the midpoint, I'm going to write the coordinates of. The midpoint is at -3, -3. Now again, this one's pretty easy because I can just see it on the graph. I can tell where that midpoint is going to be. The distance, remember, is length of these 2 points. The easiest way to do this on a graph is to create a triangle and use Pythagorean theorem. So I know that this distance becomes the hypotenuse of my triangle. My bottom side is 4 units long. My other leg is 4 units long. I can use Pythagorean theorem to find the length, or I'm going to use d for distance, between the 2 points. 4 squared is 16, and 16 plus 16 is 32. Now remember, we have to square root this, and this is where you're going to use your calculator. So type in second x squared. You should see that square root of 32, and you should get the answer of 5.656. I'm going to round that to 6 points, or 5.66. And that is the distance between the 2 points. So the easiest thing when you're doing a graph is to simply find the distance using Pythagorean theorem. Draw that triangle out. Now, occasionally we'll be given some points and we have to find the midpoint of them, and we're not given a graph. So what I've given you here is the midpoint formula. Take the x value of the first point plus the x value of the second point divided by 2, the y value of the first point plus the y value of the second point divided by 2. This is my x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm going to simply plug these into the formula. So I'm going to take 2 plus 1 over 2 and 4 plus -3 over 2. Always include the signs, okay, so that you don't mess that up. And then I'm going to simplify. 2 plus 1 is 3 over 2. 3 can't be divided by 2, so I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. 4 plus -3 is 1 over 2. Again, that can't be simplified. I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. So the midpoint of these 2 points is 3/2, 1/2. Again, you're just plugging into the formula, and you are finding the midpoint between the 2 x's and between the 2 y's. The last thing I want to show you is how to find the midpoint and length of a line segment on the graph when it's not very clear, okay? So the midpoint is probably in here somewhere, but we can't tell exactly where that is. So this is where I really probably want to use my formula. So I'm going to figure out what my 2 endpoints are. This endpoint is at -2, -3. This endpoint is at 5, -2. So I'm going to use those two, -2, -3, as my x1, y1, and 5, -2 as my x2, y2. And I'm just going to put those into that midpoint formula. So -2 plus 5 over 2, -3 plus -2 over 2. And I'm going to simplify. -2 plus 5 is 3 over 2. And -3 plus -2 is -5 over 2. There is my midpoint. That is as simplified as I need to get with that. So sometimes, even though we have the graph, it's not very easy to tell where that midpoint is by eyeballing it. So we want to use that midpoint formula and just plug in the endpoints to find it. Now, remember, we also have to find the length. I can still draw a triangle here and use Pythagorean theorem, okay? So my one leg here is 1 unit long. My other leg is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units long. 7 squared plus 1 squared is going to equal d squared. I'm going to square both parts. So 49 plus 1 is 50. And then I'm going to square root that. And the square root of 50 is 7.07. Or we could even round that to 7.1, depending. Okay? And Mobius will tell you, I think, where you need to round it to. So 7.07 or 7.1 for the length of that line segment. Hopefully this makes sense for you. Go ahead and try level 2. Most of it is using the graphs, and you can just find the distance, find the midpoint, and type those in, okay? Please remember, if you haven't finished level 1, you need to do that as well. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.